think continuous manufacturing will start happening more often. There will be some pioneers coming up with filing biologics in continuous space, some hybrid, some continuous. But I think the industry itself still needs to kind of migrate into that continuous manufacturing space. The concept of the industry itself, the biotechnology companies that sells your equipment, they are still selling you the same fed batch equipment that you have to modify or adapt to your continuous process. So there's not even a continuous manufacturing market out there. So this is still kind of in that transition space. And this is where the key element of harmonization needs to come to play. Once we have that fundamental technologies, those kits that are pre-built for continuous, that do have a little bit of easier implementation into the facilities for continuous space, all of that, when that is in place, I think continuous will be the future to come near soon.
Welcome back to the Smart Biotech Scientist. I'm David Brühlmann, and we are continuing our conversation with Tiago Matos, who is a digital innovation leader at Merck. In part 1, we explored the reality behind Industry 4.0 in biologics manufacturing. Now, we're diving deeper into practical implementation strategies, organizational challenges, and Tiago's bold predictions for the future of our industry. Whether you're commuting to the lab or taking a quick coffee break, these next 10 minutes will equip you with actionable insights to navigate the digital transformation of bioprocessing. Let's jump right back in. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brühlmann, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. Now I'd like to circle back to something you've mentioned before, because when we implement these technologies, you suggested that we do this step by step, and then the end goal is an end-to-end integration. And what comes into my mind there is the process format itself, because I think the digitalization and what we do also very much depends whether we keep a fed batch or we move towards a continuous process. And now on the continuous processing side, there are different levels. Either you just do a perfusion run, for instance, or you do a multi-column cycling step in the chromatography, or it's also an end-to-end. How do you describe this current state of the continuous processing, and when does it make sense to go towards a full end-to-end continuous process? Where does it not make sense? And what are perhaps the most compatible molecules that support the full end-to-end implementation?
Continuous space itself, I do mention this sometimes, it's just elegant automation principle as of now, right? The growth over knowledge is always key here. And I think the monoclonal industry or recombinant proteins itself do fall a little bit on that space where we can start operating in a continuous space. Now, designing continuous itself is very different. And as you mentioned, there's perfusion, there's the cell mass is different, the type of contaminants actually vary compared to fed batch. And then the way you design step by step is going to be completely changing the way you have to think about it. And I think this is where the industry is still lacking of experience. There's no actually a true control strategy expectation out of continuous. And that's skeptical. In our experience, and this is not taking credits from the brilliant Mark Brouwer at Merck, continuous manufacturing platform exists, but then the operation and development is still 2 to 3 times more time and FTE consuming. How to get there still requires a lot of little development tools that will allow us to actually understand better what's happening in those mid stages. Going back to your original question, where we see the biggest value of it? It's heavily dependent on your product demand, how much you have to produce, and how your bioreactor is going to perform in the perfusion or not. You can try to target any product into continuous space, but then if your molecule is not produced well in the perfusion space, or you have unstable cell lines because that protein doesn't actually like the environment that doesn't provide you any value. And then you are spending years trying to develop that specific protein there. So go fed batch, it's much faster. We already have the knowledge there. So this is where continuous is. We don't have enough knowledge in it. We are still learning into that kind of mindsetting. And the more we do, the more we learn. But what is the absorption of risk and costs for each company that is trying to invest on this? We'll continue over and over, but there's a point of, okay, we need to show something. We need to make it happen. And I think that's still on that process. We still are trying. We had good examples that we can do hybrids, and then you go to integrated continuous biomanufacturing conferences. You see some companies are already doing some hybrid kind of approach. They haven't filed yet. It's probably a reason for it. That's probably that control strategy is not coming out as simple as it is for fed batch. And I think there's a gap there. We need to work with regulatories exactly to understand what is the expectation as part of control strategy in a continuous versus fed batch. Because we can't operate in the same way. We can't design the process in the same way. Why are we forcing the control strategy to come out the same way? And we need to create kind of boundaries there. How to come up with a control strategy for continuous process is the elemental key here. And I think that's where digital twins come out to play a role. I think that gap will be filled with its digital capabilities.
Yeah, while perfusion or while continuous processing has a lot of advantages, we should not forget that it's more complicated. And in certain cases, it's just much easier to develop a fed batch process.
Yep, that's true. Nothing we can do about it. Just keep learning and try to make it better with the future.
Looking forward now, Tiago, what is your vision for biologics manufacturing, let's say a decade from now? I know that's a difficult question because we are in the middle of a lot of change, but how do you see this evolving?
I think continuous manufacturing will start happening more often. There will be some pioneers coming up with filing biologics in continuous space, some hybrid, some continuous. But I think the industry itself still needs to kind of migrate into that continuous manufacturing space. The concept of the industry itself, the biotechnology companies that sells your equipment, they are still selling you the same fed batch equipment that you have to modify or adapt to your continuous process. So there's not even a continuous manufacturing market out there. So this is still kind of in that transition space. And this is where the key element of harmonization needs to come to play. Once we have that fundamental technologies, those kits that are pre-built for continuous, that do have a little bit of easier implementation into the facilities for continuous space, all of that, when that is in place, I think continuous will be the future to come near soon. And then automation will start becoming even more easier to implement. Advanced controls, model-based controls, some AI-driven machine learnings that will help us taking a little bit of lesson learned during campaigns without having that true control over the scheme, of course. And then a lot of that gap that exists right now that I was referring about control strategies and how to actually understand your process in a live mode, I think that comes from the digital twin space. I think that's the gap that we're going to be filling. For many years, we've been saying that analytical or PAT is the key here. Do we need more and better PAT to understand what's operating in, or what's coming out during continuous? But in reality, not all PATs will give you a true monitoring of all CQAs you have in your operation. So the digital twins and the machine learnings and the soft sensors, those are the little touches we need on this part. Let's try to create those soft sensings. Okay, we don't know residual Pro-A at certain stages because your analytical is offline. Okay, can we create a Raman tool here that provides you a little bit better understanding, and with that create a soft sensing that will tell you exactly what is happening, what's the reality outcome. And then with all of this together, then you'll start seeing that plug and play concept. That's when the manufacturing colleagues, the biotech companies will come as like, hey, I have this multi-column chromatography kit here. You just need to plug it. You don't even need to do anything. It's already all wireless connected. You can put your digital twins here. You have all the Ethernet protocols in place. So PCUA, everything is exactly as it should be because we are harmonized as industry. And that will make a big impact. And I think that's the next decade. There will be a lot of shifts here. But we have to consider as well that every time a new skid with more advanced technology comes, we are talking about millions of investments. So industries will not just shift every morning because that's a new cool thing outside. It's a very expensive industry itself. Producing a batch we're talking about millions. So if you put 1 million or 2 millions in each month because equipment comes different, that's going to make it more complicated to implement.
Tiago, what is the number one advice you would give to biotech scientists who want to fully leverage these Industry 4.0 technologies?
You can't drive everything on your own. This is a very collaborative space. And I'm saying this, and I have to mention, I'm surrounded by amazing people at my work. And I have to rely on their expertise to actually come up with something as a common goal. I have this amazing colleagues. We call ourselves the digital trio because the influencers of the digital transformation at work, Faye Metzi Gakal and Jasdeep Mandur. Amazing people. Faye is a modelist. Jasdeep is someone with a PAT and advanced controls in mind. And I'm the process guy. So we are continuously on this brainstormings. We have this session with the three of us are like 3 languages come together and kind of blend perfectly here. And I think this is what you need to understand when you come to this kind of environment. You don't have all the tools you need to do your job. You just need to be incredibly collaborative and find a common goal. Find the best out of people and bring them together. It's like the little amino acids in the small protein. They have to come out together to make that perfect scenario. This is where you need to focus. There are a lot of opportunities nowadays with PhD programs, master programs, where you can actually have a flavor of 2 worlds. Super lucky that I was introduced to modeling when I was at Steve Kramer, because it brought me from that process mindset or protein understanding to actually a reality of application. Try to bring yourself into that kind of environment where you understand that you are a piece of the puzzle. And if you have a process background, try to educate yourself about machine learning or data science, or try to bring a little bit of an extra skill for you to make yourself a little bit more visible into different areas, or at least to understand them better. I love modeling. I don't necessarily do modeling because I don't have the bandwidth for it, but I understand when I talk with my modeling friends, hey, I need this. And I try to explain the best way possible near to the language of modeling people. And the same way, when I talk with automation folks, I feel like ignorant when I'm talking about automation, but I know how to communicate with them and say, hey, this is what exactly we need. Can you help us make this a reality? This set of skills comes from your education, comes from the experience, mostly comes from your opening to actually be involved in the different environmental spaces.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. I like that because we are working in a much more interdisciplinary space than perhaps 20 years ago. And it's so key to understand what the other people are doing. As we are wrapping up, Tiago, what is the most important takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
There's a lot of ahead of us for Industry 4.0, and the digital twins are a big component of it. Although it's very expensive, relies in models that traditionally are not as cheap as people try to picture. But there are a lot of attempts to make this work. And machine learning comes to make a fundamental change here. The models don't have to be precise, but they can be robust enough and descriptive enough that the machine learning will help you maturing them throughout your operation. It's fundamental that the industry itself harmonizes a lot of these technologies together. And Nimble, Bioforum, ASPE, and so on. All of this type of different collaborative environment are helping creating some synergy with different partners. All of this needs to be kind of harmonized at some level. And it's going to be a big transformative tool for the upcoming years. It is not cheap. It requires a lot of patience, and it requires a lot of influencing of more conservative environments.
This has been a fantastic conversation, Tiago. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing your insights, your take on the status of Industry 4.0 technologies. Where can people get a hold of you, Tiago?
I'm always happy to connect with people in LinkedIn. You can find me with Tiago Matos. And if you want to email, you can also email me on the tiago.matos@merck.com. And again, this was actually a really amazing conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you, David. And I hope people enjoyed the outcome of this conversation as well. Looking forward to hear some feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear your feedback. Please leave a review. It means the world to us just to hear from you what you think about the status of Industry 4.0. And once again, Tiago, thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, David.
What powerful insights from Tiago Matos on navigating the digital future of biologics manufacturing. I'm sure you're walking away with practical strategies to implement in your own organization. Remember, you're not alone in facing these challenges. Even the industry leaders are navigating this transformation one step at a time. I'd like to offer you a free consultation to discuss any challenges you may have in your CMC strategy. Whether you're dealing with process optimization, regulatory hurdles, or exploring digital technologies, this personalized session could help clarify your path forward. Book a free call with me. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, this is David Perlman reminding you that bioprocessing can be smart. See you next week for another dose of biotech wisdom. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.